So everyone, I got Mike Morrice here, and welcome, Mike. Thank you for coming back to the show today.
Thanks for having me back again. It's nice to hear your voice and to see some familiar faces here.
It's always a great pleasure to have you come back on the show as usual and talk about the updates of what's happening with the Canada Disability Benefit Program that everyone was so eager to hear that was going to be in the federal budget, but unfortunately that didn't happen. A lot of words of disability, but no results. So I was just wondering if you could maybe give some updates today and on what's happening with the progression of that and the benefits of the GLBI for sure, right? It's all kind of integrated and then we'll take questions after.
I'll start by first of all saying thanks to a lot of you that are with us this afternoon. You've been helping to amplify this message, and I can't say enough how important that is to in your various networks, both in person and online. To be, I know a number of you. I see Mike is here, for example, and has been talking about engaging with your MP in Guelph. I see Maddie's with us. I know you've also been talking about engaging with your MP as well. This is so important for MPs to be hearing directly from both Canadians with disabilities and their allies across the country at such an important time. So I'll be really brief, and then I think it's much more meaningful for us to just get into conversation and whether folks have questions or maybe even just experiences and reflections they might want to share. For my part, Brent, in the budget, the word disability was actually used very few times. I was very surprised even. As many of you know, there's only this one section talking about an employment strategy, as if the only value that Canadians with disabilities offer is their readiness to work. And so it is discouraging and disappointing in a lot of ways. That being said, where I'm feeling more optimistic is with respect to the momentum that we are building together as a result of the efforts that many of you have been a part of for so many years. Groups like Disability Without Poverty that now have their campaign of kind of where's the bill, as a result of the 43 senators that have signed their joint letter, the one that you saw from MPs just a few weeks ago from across 4 different parties. We've had a few more sign on even just in recent days. We've had a number of media, both from right across the country, most recently an article in the Hill Times just yesterday. And so all of this is adding up to added pressure and momentum for the governing party to do what they said they would do, to do it immediately, to reintroduce the bill, and to ensure that Canadians with disabilities are included every step of the way. Because we know once they reintroduce the bill, there will be significant conversation to follow when it comes to negotiations with the provinces and territories to figure out how this will work. So I'll pause there. Hopefully that's a bit of an update. For those of you that have kind of just started into the conversation, you can head to disabilitywithoutpoverty.ca to see more about the campaign from them. If you want to see the letter I mentioned, you can go to mikemorrismp.ca. The letter itself is linked there also. Thanks again for everyone that's joined us today. I see a few hands up already, so Brent, pass it back to you and happy just to have a bit of a conversation.
Canadian Disability United.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for joining us today. I'm located in Ontario. We are facing Doug Ford's election and his ableism. There have been some petitions raised in the Ontario legislature about his funding of our program. But we have a huge problem where Carla Quattrell, I can never pronounce her last name, I apologize, does not speak out to our premiers and tell them to do their part of their jobs. So I don't know if there's anything you can do to help suggest that happens or have some of the MPs tell him to do his job. I would like to propose a new bill being raised that is based on one of our group's members' life experience. We know that the 1% billionaires tax has been declined repeatedly by the House. I don't know if you know anything about Hayden's mom's story with her child, Hayden, but is Rebecca on here today? I haven't noticed yet.
Rebecca's not on yet, no.
Okay. Rebecca's story is typical. It is heartbreaking. It is, I believe, what should be the poster child for the why we need benefits in not only federally but also provincially. Hayden has passed away. He was denied nutritional requirements to meet his meals. He didn't get diapers that he needed. The list goes on, and those are just two of the iceberg, like tips of the iceberg. Political red tape, lack of funding, people, singles not being able to survive with a roof over our head. I'd like to propose that we raise a bill that once again asks for funding from not only the billionaires but the corporate world, because I believe, if I'm not wrong, when Medicare was put into Canada by Tommy Douglas way back in the 50s and 60s, a 1% tax was paid by corporations. And we are in poverty because of corporations, yet the head of the food bank is saying that disabilities need funding for, there's not enough funding for our programs, and that would help cut down the usage of food banks. And he is with Walmart, and there's somebody from Kellogg's on that board as well. And so they're supportive of us having an increase in funding. So their company should help us. So I'm proposing, instead of a 1% from the billionaires, 0.5% from the billionaires, 0.5% from corporations, to continue to fund separate disability funds transfer program, as opposed to the funds transfer program that is muckied in with everybody else's, so that we do not ever have to face our disabled Canadians having the choice between homelessness or assisted suicide because the government refuses to help them.
I was just going to say, Janet, thank you for raising that. Let me start to say thanks for the advocacy you've been doing online as well. It's part of the momentum that we need for folks to be hearing from Canadians with disabilities. In terms of Hayden's story, first of all, I could not agree more in terms of the tragedy that Rebecca went through. I feel so strongly about it. In fact, Rebecca is someone I've known for a number of years, and I actually shared Hayden's story in the House of Commons just a few weeks ago. And I shared that story, his story and Rebecca's story, with her permission, recognizing that for us to help other Canadians understand what a desperate situation this is, stories like this one are important to be shared when we have the permission from folks like Rebecca. And I want to say again, the courage that she has. I'm so glad that Brent, you're having her on for one of these Twitter spaces. Mm-hmm. I think she is such a strong woman. She's just incredible. And it was a real gift for her to give me that permission to share her story. And really, in sharing, to build the advocacy to make clear how unacceptable it is that this is the reality for people in this country today. That when Hayden turned 18, all of the supports that Rebecca had access to fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
He didn't even get onto ODSP for, I think it was another 6 or so months. And then when got onto ODSP, as you mentioned, didn't have the additional supports required, putting her into being forced to make these impossible choices. So for those with us tonight who might not have heard that story, I shared it on Twitter myself a few weeks back. So you can find it there. You can find it on the Hansard record on the House of Commons website. I'll pass it back to you, Brent. I'm not sure if it's Mike next or others that jump in.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to just kind of add in before I go to Mike A. For comments. Neo is the editor-producer for Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies, and he puts out some amazing highlights of audio for anyone who has missed any segments, I encourage you to go and check out the YouTube link, and Neil can talk about that when I get to him. But he has the latest meeting on my show here with Hayden, which is Rebecca, which is Hayden's mama forever. So it's very enlightening to have her back on the show yesterday, and she told the story, and it's very heart-wrenching of what the hell the system has failed her and so many others. So with that being said, I'm going to now pass the mic over to Mike A, and he has a question. Go ahead, Mike. Thank you for coming by.
Of course. Hi, Mike. My name is Mike Ashkwe. I'm located in Guelph, so I'm not too far from you. I also work with the Guelph NDP. I do work with the disability executive position, and I'm also the Indigenous rep. So my background primarily is in broadcast journalism for the last 15 years. And one of the things that has not been discussed about the Canadian disability benefit is there's this proposed 3-year study, which supposedly has already gotten underway. The thing that I'm having trouble with as a journalist is who is conducting this study, how is the data being interpreted, how is the data being collected, and what is the thesis behind this study? Basically, what scientific biases are built into it, because disability is such a wide topic and there's so many subsets of disability, be they mental, physical, and other things that fall into maybe neurodivergent territories. I don't think it's going to be a simple thesis, and 3 years is a little insulting because even at the conclusion of this 3-year study, there is no guaranteed implementation of this. They just said we're going to do a 3-year study and then look at it. My other problem is when pushed for these answers, Minister Quattro blocked me on Twitter last year when I had never said anything ruder than you could get away on a average sitcom you might see on Global. And when I kept pushing for answers, I was eventually blocked. And then I've continued to raise questions within the community, as you probably see my retweets and whatnot. And then one question I would love to have asked at question period, and I think it'll strike at the heart of all this, is during the pandemic, it was pretty much determined that $2,000 is for people to live. And I would like to know a very direct and human answer. Why is it our lives as disabled Canadians are valued so much less than yours? And to follow up to that, why is my worth as a person determined by how much I contribute to an economy we cannot participate in?
Thanks, Mike. Those are powerful questions that get at the heart of this work. That really what this comes down to is ensuring that every person in this country is offered the same amount of dignity. And I couldn't have put it better myself. And I think that's why it goes to the heart of why it's so important in this work that we ensure we continue to call out. I am one parliamentarian, and I think it's so important that folks like myself continue to call that it's individuals as Canadians with disabilities whose voices needs to be centered throughout so that fact and reality is not lost. With that, I also wanted to say a huge thank you to you, Neil, and to you, Brent, in particular, for the organizing you're doing to create this space tonight, but on a regular basis. You know, the amount of time that goes into this kind of organizing. It's one thing to be organizing in person, but organizing online can be even more difficult. And so just really appreciate not only the fact that you're willing to have me back again for this conversation, but the community that you're building online through your really important efforts.